So this past week, I returned to the Alamo Drafthouse for a screening of Caligula: The Ultimate Cut, which is a new version of the notorious 1979 film, which I had never seen and was really excited to. And it really did not disappoint.
So, the story of the making of Caligula is actually just as fascinating as the film itself. It was originally produced by Bob Guccione, who was the founder of Penthouse magazine. The film had really big ambitions. It had a script by the legendary novelist Gore Vidal. It was directed by Italian filmmaker Tinto Brass and had an absolutely stacked star-studded cast, including Malcolm McDowell as Caligula, Helen Mirren, and Peter O'Toole. And it was meant to be this experimental blend of high art mixed with adult film entertainment. However, creative differences soon led to a notorious fallout. Gore Vidal quickly disowned the project when the narrative kind of shifted focus, and Guccione locked Brass out of the editing process, adding more explicit scenes that better aligned with his Penthouse background. And upon the release, this movie was actually widely panned and eventually banned, despite it ironically doing pretty good at the box office. There was always a lot of anticipation for what this movie was going to be. And over time, it really did develop a cult following. Fast forward to now, 40 years later, and producer Thomas Nagobin has delivered a completely recut version that is closer to Vidal's original vision. It uses his script as a template, and it uses alternate takes and unused footage. And now, with all that being said, the question is, was Nagobin successful in redeeming Caligula? And in my opinion, he absolutely was. I was completely enthralled by this new cut of the film. The film is brutal, it is erotic, it is masterfully staged. Every single frame, it grips you with its sheer excess, from the lavish sets to the relentless display of power and decadence. This is not a film for the faint of heart, I will say that. Though a lot of the more explicit content has been toned down, this movie just, it remains inherently sexually charged, very violent. But I think that works in its favor because this is, after all, a story about power and how that power intertwines with lust and dominance. Malcolm McDowell gives a brilliant performance as Caligula. He is really nothing short of riveting. His character is a man who craves the ultimate power to be found at Rome at the time, only to find it leaving him hollow and bored, and he grows disdainful for his followers, whom he kind of mocks for their sheep-like obedience, which adds a lot of complexity and layers to his character. And then you also have Helen Mirren in one of her, first big roles as his wife, who is also known as the most promiscuous woman in Rome. And her performance is equally as impactful. She's very nuanced, and she's plays a woman who's constantly trying to test the waters to see how truthful and how honest she can be with her husband despite his cruelty. They do have a shared joy in the excess of it all and in dominance over Rome, using it as their own private playground, which really creates a compelling bond between them. Also, this is a side note, but young Helen Mirren looks so much like Jennifer Lawrence that it was a little distracting at times. But going back to the movie is very shocking. For example, there is a scene where Helen Mirren's character gives birth, and it is, they don't hold back at all. Like, you see the baby coming out, and I wonder, how did they make this effect happen, only to find out later on that it was actually real births that they filmed. So when I say that this movie is very shocking, not for the faint of heart, I really do mean that. In a lot of ways, this movie kind of felt like, to me, as if Babylon and Barry Lyndon had a baby, which to me, that's like, those two films are really great. But yeah, it is a very erotic and accessible movie, and I think that it manages to be captivating at the same time and even thought-provoking, despite the shocking contents, or perhaps because of them. I think that it stands as a film that really pushes the boundaries of what film is, of conventionality. And I do wonder that if this version had been released, or a version similar like this had been released at the time, would it have gone over well? Would it have been accepted? And if so, how might that have changed just the landscape of what movies look like today? Because I really do think that this film pushes so many boundaries, that even in today's standards are a lot. So it really does make you wonder as to the legacy that this film would have in film history. Highly recommend you watch this movie, especially if you're a cinephile, and if you think you can handle the more shocking, salacious nature of this movie.